This is lesson 2.3, day 2, and what we're going to be doing here is focusing on writing equations in slope-intercept form and also graphing linear equations. All right. You can rewrite a linear equation in slope-intercept form by solving for y. So if you notice here in this equation, it's not in slope-intercept form. However, if we solve for y, we can put it in slope-intercept form, and this is how we're going to do it. We are going to isolate, and if you remember what we mean by isolate is we're trying to get, what we're going to do is we're going to try and get the y all by itself. So in order to do that, remember we're going to use our order of operations in reverse. All right, so we're gonna move things through addition and subtraction before we move things through multiplication and division. So what do you mean by move things? Well, we got to move this 5x. All right, it's got to get to the other side because we're trying to isolate this. So this is a positive 5x, so we're going to subtract 5x right out of the gate here. Alright, so 5x minus 5x, that cancels. So we're left with negative 4y equaling negative 5x plus 16. Now, it's important that you don't try and combine those. Alright, those are not like terms. One is a negative 5x, it has a variable x, and the other one's a constant, it's 16. So don't make the mistake of combining those and saying 11x. That's incorrect. All right, they're not like terms, so you just have to rewrite them. All right, now we still haven't gotten y by itself. We have to get rid of the negative 4. So this is negative 4 times y. So now we're going to move it we're going to get rid of it by dividing by a negative 4. What you do on one side, you have to do the other. And you have to do it to the entire other side. So I'm going to take the negative 5x and divide that by 4. And I also have to divide the 16 by 4. So, I'm sorry, negative 4. So negative 4 divided by negative 4, that cancels out. That's just 1. So I am left with y equaling, we have a negative 5 divided by negative 4. That can't be simplified or reduced. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so it's going to be a positive 5/4 x. And then we have 16 divided by negative 4. 16 divided by negative 4 is a negative 4. Alright, so as you can see here, we started with an equation not in slope-intercept form, but by solving for y, notice we now have an equation in slope-intercept form. Alright, so what would our slope be? Our slope would be 5/4, and our y-intercept would be negative 4. Alright, our next problem is a little bit trickier because we're dealing with fractions, but the same idea and kind of rules apply in how we're going to go about putting this in the slope-intercept form. We are going to isolate the 1/2 y. We want that all by itself. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to move the negative 3/4 x. And we're going to do that by adding 3/4 x to both sides. Alright, so this is going to cancel. Negative 3/4 x plus 3/4 x. That's going to be 0. So I'm left with 1/2 y equaling 3/4 x minus 1. Notice you cannot combine those. Those aren't like terms. Alright, now in order to, now I have 1/2 y. I got to get rid of the 1/2. So I have 1/2 times y. So what's going to get rid of the 1/2? Well, I'm going to have to multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, so 1 divided by 2, what undoes division? Multiplication. And what are we going to multiply by? 2 over 1. You're going to have to multiply by the reciprocal. And what you do on one side, you have to do to the entire other side. So that cancels, that's 1. So I have y equals 2 times 3/4 x minus 1. Alright, so I'm going to have to multiply this whole side by 2. So I'm going to do that by distributing. So y equals 2 times 3/4 x. If you put that into the calculator, you're going to get, that's going to be 1, that's going to be 2, that's going to be 3/2 x. And then 2 times a negative 1 is going to give you a negative 2. So in slope-intercept form, we have y equals 3/2 x minus 2, where 3/2 is your slope and negative 2 is your y-intercept. We should probably write that out just real quick. So our slope equals 3/2 and our y-intercept is negative 2. Alright, now what we're going to be doing is graphing lines. Alright, so here's the 4-step process in order to graph a line. The first thing we want to do is put the equation in the slope-intercept form. So that's why we've worked so hard before this, making sure we're able to do that. The next thing we're going to do is plot the y-intercept on the graph and then use the slope to find the second point. So one of our points is going to be the y-intercept, and then the second point that we're going to plot is going to be based on our slope. And it's important that if the slope is a single number, all right, for instance, if it's 3, you want to write that as a fraction, 3 over 1. All right, because remember, slope is rise over run. So we would go up 3 over 1. So writing it as a fraction is beneficial if it's a single number. And then finally, we're going to draw a line through the 2 points. Alright, so here, what is the graph of negative 2x plus y equaling to 1? So our first step is to put this in slope-intercept form. It is not in slope-intercept form right now. Alright, we have to solve for y. We got to isolate y. So in order to do that, we have to move the negative 2x. So to move it, we're going to use inverse operations and add 2x to both sides. Alright, so that cancels. So we're going to be left with, I'm going to write over here, y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, we're good because this is now in slope-intercept form. We know that our slope is equal to 2. But remember, when we're graphing these and our slope is a single number, we're going to write it as a fraction. So we're going to say it's 2 over 1. And then know that that equals rise over run. And then our y-intercept is equal to 1. Alright, so the next step then is to plot the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, where is this graph going to cross the y-axis? So this is your y-axis, this is your x. It's going to cross it at 1. I'm just going to add some markings. Alright, so there's the y-intercept at 1. And then the second point is we're going to use, we're going to get our second point using our slope. So our slope is 2 over 1. So from this point right here, we're going to go up 2. So 1, 2, up 2. Alright, so now we're here. Oops. So now we're there, and then we would have to go over 1. So it would put us there. So up 2 over 1 puts us there. And we could keep going if we wanted to. We can go up to create more points, but all you need for a line is 2 points. I think it's worth noting that 2 over 1 is also equal to negative 2 over negative 1. Remember, a negative divided by a negative gives you a positive, so those are the same thing there. So what I could do is go down 2 over 1, and that'll put me here. And that's what I'm going to do because there's more room in this direction. Down 2 over 1, and then I'm going to connect. And there's my line. Alright, so follow those steps and you'll be good for graphing lines.